Students, it's a psychological victory.
Yeah, she's like, do not hit me on the back of the neck again. I don't.
Circle game, man.
Yeah. And then there's a whole thing with the white supremacy. Have you seen that?
I did see somebody making some connections with that.
Okay, so similar to the way the flat Earth started, with like as a troll.
So what do you know about that?
Okay, so not a lot.
Okay.
I was using that example because I want to believe that most people don't actually believe the flat Earth.
You know, that Eric Dubay guy really messed up the narrative for a lot of people, because he's the. So I thought you might have been saying he was the troll, but there's one guy out there that like has put out so much content on flat Earth. It's really mind-boggling. Okay. And he is, for me, he is who upsets the narrative, because he's somewhat articulate, but he's so in depth. Like his one little documentary is like 3 hours long.
Yeah, I think I have stumbled onto some of those YouTube videos and not made it through. But so anyway, similarly, it started out, I don't know, on Reddit or whatever, 4chan, as being like people saying that this was. I'm afraid to even do it, honestly.
I'm not even looking at that. Okay. Yeah, so you almost
I'm afraid for like a video to leak out of me doing it. But or on Twitter saying this is this means white supremacy. It's a white power sign.
Why? What? What is it? Is it the shape? Is it like when you throw up gang signs?
I'm not sure. I don't.
I saw that going around, and then I also saw some teachers are saying it's like something to do for cocaine or something.
I haven't seen cocaine, but so of course, like Twitterverse, whatever, went crazy with it. And then, like, there has to be dozens of pictures of me doing that.
Oh,
because I would always try to sneak it into pictures, like as a joke, just because jokes.
People do it at the gym all the time.
Yeah.
Like somebody did one last week.
Circle game. And so then but then the actual, like, Nazis on Twitter or whatever actually started doing it. So
they picked up on it. They stole it from us
because people were saying, "Hey, this is white power. This is like whatever." Like it's just like the internet just takes things over so fast.
It does.
Like most people still know it as just like the circle game. I saw some police officers got in trouble for the pictures of them. I assume it was just them playing the circle game, but they're just like.
Oh, I think it maybe is supposed to symbolize WP.
Oh, maybe it is.
I think that's what they're saying.
Maybe it is like a W. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe it is like, yeah. I don't know. I just know for my whole life that was the circle game. My daughter knows it as the circle game. And now the internet has ruined this thing. And I'm just like, I know. Yeah, I'm like, but it's like, how do you explain it to people though? Like, because there's other people that had no concept, like never heard of the circle game. Their first exposure to that hand gesture was, oh, that's what Nazis do. That's what modern Nazis do. That's what modern white power people do. So it's like, I don't know how to respond to
like
that.
When I was a kid, it was like, hey, okay, man, good job. And then it became, I got dead armed if I looked at it. And so reinvention and cultural appropriation.
Yeah, so it's just the internet. It's impossible to control things on the internet, because once it takes off,
it's wildfire.
Yeah, and then I know for a while I would see, like on Reddit, people would post the news reporting on it, like post the news saying so and so showing the white power sign, and then they would like film that, and then they would just start dying laughing because they were like, it was like the trolls were saying like, look what we created, and they thought it was like so funny that the legitimate news sources were reporting on this thing as if it were real when they had just made it up.
What do you think? Did you follow that Jussie Smollett thing a while back?
I from a distance.
I mean, that's kind of like an example of what we're talking about. Is like people have realized.
Yeah, it's like he tried to harness that.
Yeah.
Even if his intentions were good, he like And I don't really know that they were, but it's like, so then maybe that's not the best example to use, but maybe like the Antonio Brown thing. Did you see that?
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
So this wide receiver he was a really good wide receiver. He got picked up by the Steelers let him go, or traded him to Oakland. He was like, I don't want to be in Oakland. He just didn't want to play there or whatever, probably because they're
they had Jerry Rice back in the day.
Yeah,
they had D-Mac right here from Arkansas.
They had Randy Moss 20 years ago. So he starts, all of a sudden, like, these things start leaking out where he's just doing these lunatic things. Like, he's like, I'm not playing with this new helmet. He, like, was going to go on strike because they gave him a new helmet to play with. And then, like, all these other, like, outrageous things. He's like, he kind of hacked the system. You know, he, like, took over the social media narrative and made himself out to be a lunatic, to where Oakland finally just cut him. They're like, all right, if you don't want to play anymore, fine. We don't want the headache. We'll let you go. Like 2 days later, the New England Patriots announced that they signed him.
I wonder if they were talking to him like the whole time.
And it came out that he had consulted with a social media strategist about how to just, like, put out this narrative that.
Now, if he would have been wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat that whole time, it would have went over even more. We're seeing UFC people do this same thing of, like, they're going to pick up on some national narrative. There's this guy named Darren Till who just decided to start acting like this super Trumpster, and not talking down on anyone about any belief, really, honestly. Like, I'm not taking a side on it.
Yeah, I understand, but I feel like that's like Kanye's MAGA hat is like, it's just like, what's the craziest thing I could do right now?
Bam, that's it.
Definitely,
people are getting beat up in the burger place for wearing their "Make America Great Again."
Definitely this red hat. So the internet is just, it's untamable. I don't know. My daughter's 11, and I was wanting an Instagram. We trying to, like, you know, I generally am like a very, like, let them learn type of parent. Like, just let them go out and learn how to do it. But it's just like, you know, so we're trying to figure out, what does that look like? How do you, because I don't think
does she have a phone?
It's going away. Yeah, she has a phone.
Dude, you know, Corey and I are talking, like, more and more, like, we're like, that's probably a year out from trying to start having kids. And when I hear about bullying going on or teen suicides locally, I mean, dude, I'm just like, the cyber side of things right now is a very wild place. And really, I can only imagine what you're thinking if your daughter's going into teenage.
Yeah, she's almost 12.
This wasn't even a factor when we were in school.
I think that is the hardest part about it, because all the other aspects, whether it's like sports or activities, you know, when friends want to come spend the night and sometimes a friend doesn't get invited, or like all those sort of dynamics, I'm like, I understand this. We can navigate. I've been through, like, I know this map. But then when it's with some of the phone stuff, I'm like, I don't even understand it myself. I don't know what an Instagram story is, really.
Dude, you're the first friend that I had who had an Apple Watch. I was super intimidated by that. I was just like, man.
Well, that's what's so crazy is, like, I generally am like an early adopter. I'm like, I like technology. I'm on board with things. I got the AirPods when they first came out. Everyone laughed at them. Now every set of headphones looks just like that. But still, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, I don't know how to wield this thing.
Well, I mean, you have to remember when the internet came out, right?
I remember when people started getting it.
Yes. Like, so early to mid 90s, computers and web access.
Yeah. I remember our computer before the internet. And I remember coming home and it was like in the house. Dad had like got an old one from work or whatever, and it had a CD-ROM. So that was kind of like before the internet. You had to get like a 10-disc CD-ROM encyclopedia, and I can remember just like looking through all those like Just it was just neat just to be able to control it.
Yeah.
Then I had Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego CD-ROM game.
So classic, man.
Yeah. And just learning how to play that. And then it was like, yeah, you can connect to the internet. It was all just text-based, mostly. And then I had a chat feature. ICQ chat was like the...
I remember that.
Yeah. And so... I'm sorry about that noise.
What was that?
Don't know. We'll find it after.
We're fine.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've always felt like I was on the front edge of like downloading music, burning it onto CDs. Now I rent my movies off the internet.
Oh, dude, I have a digital movie collection now.
Yep.
It's not even, I can't even tell you last time I bought a DVD.
No, we don't even have a DVD player.
Whoa.
I know, but then still at the same time, I'm like, how do I help my 11-year-old navigate all this?
Speaking of navigation, how are you going to get somewhere without the maps on your phone? That's something that keeps coming up for me. I'm like, because you were just talking about traveling before or after we started podcast, I don't know. But how many times have you been out? And like what I mentioned, those beltways in DC for is because you'd be on a beltway and there'd be like 3 levels to it.
Right.
And your my GPS couldn't calculate that, like my
couldn't
depth.
Quite figure out where you were.
And it would think that it was just very weird. And I had more mess ups in DC on my map, and it was up to date. My software was up to date, updates and everything.
And you have to like look at the big signs and everything. But it is wild. Like I remember when I was a kid going on like beach vacation, and my dad would be in the hotel sitting over at that little tiny desk, that little tiny hotel desk with these like full spread of maps. And he would write down a list of all the junctions, like I-40 to I-65 south, 65 south to 20, like what. And then he would sit there and memorize it. He would memorize every junction for the day. And he would be like sitting in the car and driving, just like kind of repeating that list over and over again to himself so that he would remember where to go. And I'm like, I get in the car to go somewhere, I don't even think about where it's
I don't even own a map.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know the way to anywhere. Like I started to come over here for this. You texted me the address. I'm like, I could not get there in 10 days if my phone didn't tell me where it was.
What's so funny is like I think that's how I give directions. I'm like, get off the tech exit 81, drive this many miles, turn left at the vet clinic.
Well, we used to do that. Like me and my friends would just drive to Fayetteville, no maps, no
MapQuest.
GPS. You might print off the directions if it was somewhere you hadn't been before. But once I drove out to like Lubbock, Texas, just by myself to visit my aunt, and now I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I'd let my daughter do that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, but like it's a great tool. Like it's great for her to have that tool. It's great for her to be able to know like where she is. Great for her to call and say, "Dad, I need help," or whatever. But then it's also just like, a double-edged sword.
There's a dark side.
Yeah.
Has she had any negative experiences yet? Just being 11, like just somebody sent her a text that upset her, like not anything like subversive or anything, but just like what ways does it start to manifest, or has it, or what ways are you looking out for it to manifest?
It's more just like the unknown. I think that's what scares me the most is just the like I don't have a memory of doing this as a child.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what is suitable advice. Because like I said, generally we are very hands-off parents. Like, just go try it. You'll probably skin your knees. You'll probably mess it up a little bit. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed that you tried. Just go try it. And then you'll learn. And then as you learn, that's like deeper learning when you learn it on your own. And that's worked very well for us as parents.
Is that how your parents raised you? How Erin's parents raised her? Like you come
that's
up with this on your own?
That's mostly how my parents raised me. It's just, definitely some guardrails out there, but very wide. and then you just kind of.
What do you think about like this? Like we see, not to get into poll too many controversial things, but you see like an increase in rules directly correlated. A lot of times people like to make the argument is like, hey, these more rules led to there being more crime over here, whether that's gun control or whatever it is. Do you think that's the same thing for parenting?
I don't know. That would be outside of my.
Okay, so
you mean like as a society?
Well, like the stereotype of like, yeah, you know how pastors' kids are, or what, so like the super strict household leading to more rebellion. Okay, is so basically what I'm saying.
I can say, having gone to Bible college, which would be like the end of that funnel, pastors' kids. There wasn't all pastors' kids there, but definitely a higher concentration than normal. The kids who had the most strict, most narrow upbringing had not grown the muscle in their brain that makes good decisions because they had never exercised that muscle. All those decisions were made for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they got to Bible college at the same time I did. And Bible college is not a wild place.
How long did you go? 4 years?
4 full years. And they completely, without those parameters telling them what to do all the time, just went crazy. They went to, they'd be going to every fraternity party they could get into. Like those were the kids that fell off the deep end the fastest because they didn't they didn't practice making decisions when the stakes were really low. So that's how I, here's an example that drives me crazy. Like you see people say to their daughters, well, my daughter's not going to have a boyfriend, and like if you extrapolate that out to its in conclusion, it was like, for how long? For how long do you want her to not have a partner? Like you want her to be unhappy and lonely for her life. Maybe she chooses to be by herself later on in life, but like you're hoping for her to never have a partner in her life. That doesn't make sense. But what happens is you see young ladies that are like discouraged from that aspect of their life. They're taught to think that it's bad or that it's like something they need to hide. You follow me?
Yeah. Horrible situation to live under.
Right. And so all those things, it like builds in their mind of like, it becomes something they have to like rebel. They have to like prove that they're going to be independent about it. Or like in the best case, they just get to when they're finally 18, 20 and they start having real relationships and they don't know how to do it. They don't know the grammar of sharing your day with someone you care about. They don't know like the grammar of a relationship in the aspect of like, hey, you have like all your friends and maybe you'll just tell them you had a good day because you don't want to burden them with that. But for your partner, like you have to be honest with your partner all the time. And so since they didn't practice doing that when they were younger and the stakes were really low, like when they're 12, 13, like there's really not a lot they can mess up as far as like a relationship most of the time, but they get to practice it. You know what I mean? They get to
social. That's like me growing up, because I was homeschooled till 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
That like exactly what you're talking about was what I was trying to get out of the system. Basically, I was realizing my deficiencies even at that age in needing to go socialize outside of so I was homeschooled and then I went to church on Sunday and Wednesday, and maybe I went to the pool, the city pool in the summers and stuff, and I had friends and everything, but they were plugged into school. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a whole different world, hanging out with kids that were going to school or going to church with them or whatever, and I wasn't. And like I realized real quickly, I was just like, man, I'm missing out on mm-hmm. something. That being education, but also a social education.
So right. And So what age did you come into public school?
I came to 8th grade. So when I started coming, you were going into 10th grade, because that's where you were one of the first people I met, because me and Anthony Fleury would going into 8th grade, like the whole summer we'd ride our bikes to the field house, because my parents didn't live very far from the field house.
That's where I remember. Yeah, so I think you adjusted well, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But what you're talking about is like, I didn't know anything. So I made a lot of really weird social choices, I guess, growing up, that I think if I would have had that elementary school education and like clearly the whole Harry Potter is evil and going to ruin my entire existence argument did not work. You know, but I was one of those kids that's like, Harry Potter's evil, we don't watch Casper the Friendly Ghost, like magic is bad.
Yeah.
But I think that honestly, getting into the social situation that you're talking about is what allowed me to grow up, get a master's degree, be a business owner or college professor.
Yeah, and it's just so hard as a parent, because you do have an instinct to protect your kid from everything. Just, hey, I'll keep you from that danger. I'll keep you from that heartache. I'll keep you from that frustration. But I
think that's why my parents homeschooled me.
Well,
is out of that paranoia.
That's a natural, it's a natural response. It's a natural instinct that you have. And that's like, when your kid reaches up to touch the boiling eggs, that's your instinct. That's a good instinct. But your purpose, your function as a parent is ultimately not to protect them from the world. Your function as a parent is to prepare them to go out into the world as a grown adult human, that can go to the bank and talk to
taxes.
Just like interact with people, interact with people in slightly difficult situations. Hey, I think I was in line in front of you. No, I was definitely in line in front. You know what I mean? Like, that's a minor social interaction where now the person has to practice. Like, do I care if I have to wait one more spot in line? Probably not. There's all these variables of interpersonal relationships and interactions that you just have to learn by doing. Like, hey, that's my locker. Oh, well, I'm talking to my friend. It's like, well, I can't get into my locker. Okay, this is a mild confrontation. How do I deal with it? And they might mess that up. Maybe they'll overreact. Maybe they'll spend their whole semester being late for class because they don't have the gumption to say, can I please get to my locker? But over the course of that semester, they'll learn what's the proper way that I want to handle that type of situation. And it's just hard you can tell your kids stuff all day long, but they mostly just kind of they mostly just like learn by experience.
Do you think this? Okay, so with the digital age, the ability to be passive aggressive is like through the roof. Like, so if you can't get into your locker, do you just shoot them a Facebook message or something and be like, hey, little Johnny,
right,
you need to get out of my way.
Well, what you would do is you would post, I can't stand it when people block other people's lock. You wouldn't call them by name. That's what you would do.
Well, you notice how, like, as adults, I think, I mean, it's maybe just me, but I don't think it is. As adults at this time period with the same topic, I find myself texting a lot of times to avoid having a face-to-face difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Or just as some sort of digital communication versus, like, that's why I like the podcasting too. Like, just the ability, like, how often do people do this right here?
I know. And it is, and people are very intimidated by having to, like, call the pizza place. They're like, no, I'll use the app or whatever.
Walmart pickup.
And we make it a point to make our children order their own food at restaurants, because it's like they don't want to, especially when they're like little. They're kind of intimidated. They don't quite know what to say. But it's like, hey, you just have to learn this skill. Like, maybe they won't even need that skill in 20 years. I don't know, but I think they'll have an advantage, even if they don't need that skill as much as I need that skill. If they can do it when they need to,
it'll definitely be. I mean, let's just go ahead and say that those skills are also leadership skills.
Right. I think all those things tie in to where it's just like another tool in the toolkit of just to living life, like functioning as a grown up. And sometimes emails get confusing. Sometimes group texts get confusing, and sometimes you just need to say, "Hey, can we step in your office for a second? I need to get clarification on this." And if we'll just have a 90-second face-to-face conversation on it, it'll clear it up. And if you'll just be a grown up about it, and I'll be a grown up about it, we can solve this problem. And a lot of times in texting and emails, you just go round and round and round, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is tone, because like with like the 90-second conversation, like you can't, like, body language, tone, like you could say something in the right tone and it come across, and like it could even be kind of aggressive, but it comes across like you see that
and
person's motives,
right?
Of exactly. Like, man, this isn't something you're trying to be that way about. And I've had those very real conversations with people before, and like had been dreading them going in or whatever, and then you get there and you realize like, oh, I kind of feel bad.
That's just a person.
Yeah,
it's just a person doing their best in a difficult situation. But unless you're a really talented wordsmith, it's hard to always do that in writing, and so I think online communications tends toward extremes of like extremely aggressive or like extremely nice, maybe when that's not exactly what's going to solve the problem. And it's hard to be down the middle like you can in person. Like in person, you can be firm and nice at the same time. It's harder to do that through an email because it's always kind of read. You can't control them reading it.
Well, what's crazy is like, I just did this the other day. I sent some college students me an email, and they're like, I just totally let you down and didn't do the stuff you said, and I need your help, and I messed up this part of the exam. Like, I didn't get it turned in on time, like whatever the excuse was, and it was reasonable. So, but I sent them like a facepalm emoji.
Yeah.
And I was like, I cleared your attempt. Go back in there and do it right now. But it's like, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to come down to their level. But I do feel like it's like when I send work emails, there's like this level of professionalism and proofreading, but then there's also like some sort of weird hierarchy where I will like try and come down to my students' level and communication. I don't proofread. I don't feel bad. Right. They get what I'm saying. They communicate with me on a subpar level.
Well, and I think emojis and GIFs fill that gap kind of, because it's like, I don't really know what to type exactly, but if I send the, like the Nick Young, like, the confused face, I forget his audio, but like, or the kid at the computer, like thumbs up kid computer, like the, oh, good job, that GIF I'm talking about. Yeah, that communicates exactly.
Did you see the GIF that was talking about it being a GIF? I really don't have a side on this, but he's like let me get some J. He kept pronouncing words with a J.
There's hundreds of words with soft and hard G.
Exactly.
So you could do
you could argue either way.
My only piece of evidence for that argument is that the man that created it,
he came out and
says GIF.
Man.
So
I don't. That was his favorite peanut butter.
Maybe so, but I think it's the regional dialect. It's like tomato.
Yeah, for sure. Linguistics, man.
Yeah.
So have you been, so you're doing photography, you're a cinematographer now.
Yeah. It's a great day job.
Are you still writing?
I finished my book.
Okay. All right, dude. You had a great expression on your face when you said that.
I finished it. I got to the end of it. It's not finished. Like, it's not printable.
It's in revision.
Yes. But I got to the end of it. I can't even describe the feeling of it. It's just like the elation, it lasted like 3 days. I just couldn't stop smiling. I was just like,
man, that's a big goal.
Right.
I've wanted to write a book for like 10 years now, and I wrote my master's thesis.
Thesis.
But like, I mean, the overarching goal is to go turn a chapter of that thesis into a book, or turn the thesis into a book, or write a book about widespread panic, or you know. And I just haven't done it. But like when I got my history job, like I remember I was sitting watching Widespread Panic at Mud Island, and it was this really weird feeling. I talk to people about it all the time because I'm kind of coming out of it because I got all these other goals and stuff we were talking about earlier with the new gym. But it's like, it was at like what you're saying, this ultimate feeling of satisfaction. It's like, okay, I graduated college, I got a master's degree, I have a super successful business, I'm sitting here leisurely watching my favorite band, I feel great, I'm having an awesome time, I start teaching college when I get back full time, I've accomplished every goal I have in life, like that feeling right there. But then after that, like 3 days after that, I was like, what do I do now?
Right.
Like, what do I do? Like I was doing the podcast. So then it kind of like, I kind of downturned on the podcast for a few months because I was working, and like they had me teaching 6 classes at a time last year. It's like my first 2 semesters I taught overloads.
Wow.
So I'm teaching 5 this semester and next semester, which is like, that's 6 hours less time on campus.
Okay.
So like if you teach a class, I have to be in my office the same amount of time that day. Is how they do it, right? So if I teach 3 hours of class, I got to be in my office 3 hours.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, but you know, it's just like, it's just find a way to balance everything out, and then it's like, well, what do I do now? Like, are we going to do a new gym? We're growing. Like, what do the next set of long-term goals look like? But dude, did you feel that like when you finished your book? Did you hit a self-loathing point?
No, not when I finished it. I still haven't gone through that. I hit the self-loathing over the summer. I've been working on it for not quite a year, and I still had like the last third of it to get to, and I just felt like, wow, maybe I can't do that. Like, maybe this is a bigger thing. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out the ending. Like I had written so much, and then I was like, I don't know how to make this make sense as a whole story at the end. So what I've done is pointless. I've wasted all that time.
Were you watching Game of Thrones season 8 while you were?
No, I didn't. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but I familiar with that meme, so I understand that.
The horse. Are you talking about the horse meme? Because that's the best one.
So similarly, I felt just like, why have I written all this? It doesn't, and it's not even Game of Thrones interesting. Like,
is it a fiction work?
Yeah, it's fiction. It's just like a simple, plain, modern day fiction. It's called Two Abandoned Sandals on the Beach. It's just about a family vacation to the beach. Somebody ends up missing while they're on vacation, and then you kind of like starts unraveling of who knew who and who knew why and all this stuff. So it's just like a very plain book, and I'm like, it has to be a full book. And my friend Eli Craner that's right. That
was actually one of my favorite podcasts, because he's just
so great.
What we talked about was writing strategies.
Yeah.
Which I've like noted in my head and remarked on several times since.
Right. And so he was like, based on his encouragement, I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit down to write for 30 minutes every day, no matter what. And it's just like any other discipline. I had to stay in, because what would happen is I would write for like 3 or 4 days, get discouraged, take like 8 days off. Then when I sat back down again, I'm like, okay, where's the story? What chapter is this? How does this tie together? Like, I couldn't hold all of these strands in my mind at one time. So I would sit down for 30 minutes a day. I might only write 50 words, 60 words some days.
What do you think about word quotas?
Well, they're good, especially starting out early on when you still have like 90,000 words to go. But
I'm sure you go over quota a lot too. You get on inspiration.
Yeah. And so, but I found that just writing for an amount of time was better, because keeping the story in front of me every day, finally after like 8 or 10 days, I was able to think about enough things at one time for a sustained amount of time. Then all of a sudden I would go way over 1,000 words, 1,500 words. And I just like plowed through the ending, got to the ending. I felt and so now I'm going back through and making it. Now that I know how it ends, going back through.
How hard was it to come up with an ending, man? Like, I hear a lot of, like, the It 2 movie, which is a big waste of 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Is it not good? I haven't seen either It, but Stephen King's my favorite author.
Well, I was about to say during all this, did you think about maybe smoking cigarettes during this whole process?
I do love Stephen King. I know he was an alcoholic early on in his career, but
have you heard what he said about nicotine, though?
No.
Okay, so
does he still smoke?
And I drink a lot of caffeine. I don't think that he does. But what he was saying is that he experienced some of the worst writer's block that he had ever went through. He had never even really experienced writer's block until he stopped smoking cigarettes. And I've heard a lot of people say, like, nicotine gum, for example, they say will get you, like,
interesting,
amped. So, like, when and why did cigarettes become demonized, but we're okay with the act of smoking because cannabis is legal in 24 states? You know,
that is a strange contradiction.
I wonder if it actually makes you more productive, and they start and get conspiratorial. They started putting poisons and carcinogens in it,
right?
Or that's just a smear campaign because it makes you high functioning.
I don't know. I don't know all that history, but I know. Yeah.
Should we smoke cigarettes? That's all. That's all
no.
I want to know.
I think that's a no.
They do smell bad,
especially. I think the cigarette companies got greedy because they were set up to last forever, and they weren't happy with people smoking like 2 packs a day. They had to, like, force people to smoke like a carton a day.
Think about the tobacco industry. I don't know anything about this, but other than it went from being a cash crop in which we were willing to enslave white people for 7 years or go way out of our way to go get Africans, march them 6 months overland, the whole transatlantic voyage, that we were like, yeah, we'll just go enslave other human beings so we can get this back to Europe. And it's like, it went from that to having a skull and crossbones on it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to see the demonization of it.
It does seem like they kind of botched it. I mean, obviously all the lung cancer.
What if that was from like pollution in the ozone, and they were telling us it was cigarettes, a big misdirection?
Yeah, I don't know.
Switch me either.
It is crazy how demonized it is, and then it seems like everyone's fine with legal marijuana now.
I know it's a blaring contradiction, because it's like I'm honestly confused on whether or not smoking is bad because they're telling you that smoking is medicine now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is true. I feel like I got way off topic from something.
My
book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So Smoking Cigarettes for Inspiration, Stephen King. You mentioned
So
Stephen
I don't
King.
know how speaking of Stephen King, I don't think of it as coming up with an ending as much as finding what the ending is. So I just couldn't think of all the different plot points long enough to understand what the natural conclusion was. So then when I finally got to it, I was like I heard, I think I saw a director say the other day, a movie director say, I don't always know what I want, but I always know what I don't want. And so I would be sitting trying to write saying, no, that's not it. Like I would even like write a whole chapter and be like, that's just not it. That's not what's supposed to.
What's your average chapter length? Like dozen pages?
Between 1,000 and 1,500 words.
Okay.
So I don't know how that compares to anyone's average.
That's probably like 15 paragraphs. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And then some will be really short, like 400 or 500 words. Just like
my favorite kind of chapters. Man, I'm straight audiobook these days. Like if I can't get an audiobook, and you know what's crazy, man, is because that was never an option till I was an adult, really.
Right.
I didn't get that that's how I flourish. Like I read every day, but it's about 7 to 10 pages. And then it's done. Like I can't read anymore in that U.S. history book for today. Like it's weird. So like those are my, like I started reading a 20-page chapter today.
That's another great benefit of the smartphone revolution.
Yeah.
It's so hard to carry audio books around. Like you have CDs in your car, maybe.
You use Audible?
And I have Audible, and I use Libby, which is like the library app.
Yes, yes.
I also have Libro.
What was another one? Livervox or something like that?
I have a
Livervox?
couple. Walmart has one. But I haven't read actually or listened to as much this year because I've been trying to spend my extra time writing. So I read, I think, 60 books last year, and I'll probably only get to 40 this year.
Are you doing
but I probably do 2/3 audiobook.
We talked about your website for the photography business. Are you doing anything to market yourself as an author right now? Like, do you have a website for that or blogging?
I have a website. I have a Twitter, which a lot of writers are on Twitter, but every time I find a new author and I'm like, oh, I love this person so much, I go check and they don't Twitter. So it generally feels like a waste of time. I don't feel satisfied when I finish it. I don't know why I keep doing it, other than just kind of like the general social pressure of, oh, you make art with words, guess you better be on Twitter. But I don't think Twitter promotes idea sharing. I think it promotes
social justice,
idea confirmation. So people that already have the same ideas cluster up and just shout down anybody else that doesn't agree with them. Yeah. And it's like that in writer land, Twitter writer land, where it's like something will go around about, oh, second person is the worst. I hate reading narrative in second person. And I'm like, why? Like, maybe you read one bad story in second person. That doesn't mean it's inherently wrong or hard to read. So then people completely dismiss books and stories that are written in second person just because,
and they'll never get that.
Yeah, they miss out on experiencing it because they have this idea because someone on Twitter said don't you're not supposed to like second person. And I think people, making art is a vulnerable thing, and you do feel like you need a lot of affirmation. That's why I send my stories to like my high school English teachers, because they just say, oh, Josh, you're so great, awesome job. And I'm like, all right, that makes me feel so good. So I understand the need for that, but then I think that becomes like an addiction on Twitter with these writers.
Did you have Nancy Coslet?
No, I had her name was Miss Martin at the time.
Okay, yeah. I never got to have her, but Miss Coslet was coming in, I think, when you were a senior, and she was amazing.
Okay.
She had a PhD.
Yeah, so all three of my high school English teachers, I still send all my writing to. So, like, I understand that desire for attaboys and affirmation, but there's no, like, on Twitter, it's just like, I wrote this piece, and my friend published it in her online blog magazine. Oh, great job. You're so awesome. You're so good.
You got a hyperlink to share now.
Yep. And so, like, I do think the best writing rises to the top still. And so they kind of like created this whole other world for themselves to like self-publish and self-share and self-promote within themselves, even though like nobody outside of that universe is reading this literature. So like I don't know how significant it is.
Yeah.
Because like ultimately you writing a story, you want people to understand it and like understand what you're trying to say, understand what you're trying to get at. Like my book is a lot about the church, and it's a lot about mental health. And I want people to understand these two aspects and how the church has kind of botched a lot of mental health care.
What do you mean? Like, do you care to elaborate on that?
Just in the name of like, well, you just need to have faith, brother. You just need to trust the God of the universe. And it's like, it's okay to like believe in Jesus and
I need help
and like get some like professional help working through difficult issues in your brain and in your past, and so I think that unfortunately shame becomes a big part of Jesus' grace. And people feel ashamed to like admit that they're getting help, and a lot of times they just don't, because they don't want to be seen as being unfaithful or as having like being like weak spiritually or whatever. And a lot of it's not really formalized, though there is like an extreme there's like there's always an extreme group that actively says don't see a psychologist, but it's more like in the gray area where people are just kind of unsure. People are kind of like they, even
with things like trauma, like let's say you had somebody that was a victim of sexual assault, or they were molested when they were a child, or anything like that. Like there's like, do you think that's something that a lot of Protestant churches are being that way? Is that in Catholicism as well? Do you know?
I can't speak for Catholicism. I do think a lot of Protestant churches still have a big stigma around it.
This is a sidebar. I've just been struggling with this a lot. Like, where are you at on how the church deals with things like this? There's two schools of thought on gay people, for example. You were born that way, or you're choosing to be that way, and you should not make that choice because that choice is against God's way. It kind of seems like there's I don't what's homophobia is not the word, but a lot of Christians are like, yeah, that's a mistake, we don't accept that, it's a sin.
Right. And I
most difficult question in all Christianity probably right now.
So I can't speak for someone that says, I feel like I was born this way.
Because you don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way. I know how I feel about my sexuality. I know that it feels very inherent in my psyche, you know? And so if someone tells me that's what they feel, they're a grown up, and then I don't really have any other, I don't really have any choice but to believe them. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to put it other than...
Dan Aykroyd just said that about a whole bunch of people on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's like, Joe, why would we question these people about this paranormal activity and Bigfoot and all this?
Oh, okay, well...
but no, I mean, seriously,
okay, so
on...
For Bigfoot, I would think there would be some evidence if there was a single human-like animal. I don't know. Maybe not. He's the world's smartest creature if he stayed hidden.
For sure.
But there's not like it's not like the inside of a car or something where you can like open up the hood and say, oh, well, this one is actually turbocharged. See
these two chromosomes? Yeah.
You can see it because there's the turbocharger. So it's like, that's what they say. I don't care.
I mean, so I guess basically here's another way to think about it. And just ways I've thought about it is like, I don't understand why Christianity is concerned with what sexual and biological choice people are making.
Yeah, that is an interesting fascination, and it's also funny because there's so much of the Old Testament that is like Hebrew scripture. You know, it's Jewish scripture, not necessarily even Christian scripture. Yes. Even though it is kind of sold, it's like packaged as one.
I just went over the Hebrews and said one. So
okay, so a lot of Protestants claim the Hebrew scripture as their own. Okay, so that's a whole nother discussion. But assuming that they are inspired by that or whatever, they see that as part of their holy scripture, which again, they're also consenting adults. They can believe whatever they want to believe too. But there's so much of it that is completely ignored that like most Protestant Christians don't have a problem eating shrimp.
Yeah, they don't have dietary.
They don't have a problem eating bacon. Most of them don't keep a 10-foot fence on the roof of their house.
What do you think of this circumcision thing, man?
Yeah, I don't know how common that is still. It seems like it's still pretty common.
Somebody tricked my parents into cutting my penis off, dude.
Well,
like that's... I don't understand. Like, other than like the story in the Bible, I'm like, why? Where does this come from?
Yeah. And
anybody can just cut their penis off and then they're in the club.
Those are two interesting examples. But it's funny because you're not Jewish, right?
No. If I could choose, I would probably go Judaism, man. Do you know any Messianic Jews? I know some Messianic Jews here locally. They're great people.
I think that's maybe the most philosophically consistent belief system based on the Bible, what we call the Holy Bible.
Nazarenes, I haven't looked a whole ton into them. Somebody you mentioned last time we hung out, Jordan Mays, he was raised a Nazarene.
I didn't know that.
I remember when we were growing up, he was Church of Nazarene because like went to vacation Bible school and like that's when we first met each other, and he was Church of Nazarene, and we ended up being friends.
Good times. VBS.
Yeah, dude, it was. Well, you went to what, East Mount Zion?
I was First Baptist and then Stillwell.
Okay, Stillwell. Yeah. Same road.
Right. Yeah.
Much earlier on in the road. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, I went to First Baptist Church Bible School. That was the Bible school to go to when you were a kid, man. Mm-hmm. One time, Leslie Miller pushed me over in Vacation Bible School.
How did you respond to that difficult interperstal situation?
I was homeschooled, so I didn't have very many social skills at that particular time. I didn't get it. I was like, why did this attractive female push me over? I was just like, I would love nothing more than to be her friend. But it was this funny thing. And like, so I ended up like, I went and I like basically asked whoever our teacher was or whatever. I was like, why did you push me over? And she's like, oh, I don't know. We made up. That's all I remember. But that was that would have been one of my first social confrontations outside of like with a cousin or something. Yeah. Because I would have been probably 7 years old.
Okay.
Something like that. Maybe 8. So.
But yeah, I think you're right. Those are two interesting examples. And I don't know exactly what the historical accidents are that make those the two parts of the Jewish law. Yeah, it's that modern Christians feel obligated.
It's interesting what I've just recently, and not to get down this rabbit hole. Do you need another water, man? I'll go get you one.
I think I'm okay right now.
Okay, cool. Let me know if you change your mind. I'm about to get a fridge in here, so I won't even have to.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's weird how people cherry pick. But have you ever heard of Sam Harris?
No.
He has been working on this project for a while that highlights all of the contradictions in between the, like, it could be Old Testament book to Old Testament book, or it could be Old Testament book to New Testament book. So like what you were saying about weaving all the plot lines back together, he like found all the places that people did not weave them.
And I think together. It is a hard thing to do, and I think that I think most people's intentions are good, and I think they are just trying to do the best they can with the information they have. But that's how long did you say he's been working on that project?
A few years. Yes.
So most people,
and it's to prove atheism, which I don't buy into.
Okay, actually. Well, whatever. But like most people have to be at work. They have to get their kids to ball games. They have to buy their family Christmas presents. Like most people don't have the time to do that for 3 years to notice, oh, this thing there's a contradiction here. This isn't, you know what I mean? It's just like somebody told me this one part and it made me feel happy and I like that. And they don't really give it any more thought than that. You know what I mean? And so I do feel like kind of like having left church world.
Do you still go to services?
Yeah. But like the industry,
professional Christianity.
Yeah. Having left, where I'm like, I can be sympathetic to people who are critical of organized church, because I'm like, hey, I know I was in the middle of it. But
I
then
wasn't like that. I went to church 19 years, played in the praise and worship band,
Yeah.
and then I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm out, going to philosophy school.
So I can understand the base. I can understand the criticism, but then also I feel like sometimes it's not reasonable, and I feel like it's unfair, and so. But I also am like in the middle, because I feel like I'm telling like these people, you're being too critical, and you're being critical of things that don't matter. And then I feel like I'm telling these people, well, I think if you would just stop to think about that for just a little bit longer, you would realize the Bible doesn't actually say that. The Bible doesn't actually expect that of you in 2019. And so like, instead of being like a friend to both sides, I feel like I end up just becoming an enemy to both sides, because like we talked about earlier, of social media and the tendency towards extremes, and the tendency to like clump up into clans. Like they're like, oh, well, you're not in our club. No, if you believe that, then you're not in our club. I only know of one other club. It's the opposite club. So you must be one of them. But then over here in this group, they're like, oh, you're one of them. And so I'm like, no, I'm just trying to tell both of you, like, you're not.
You're a centrist.
Well,
in a sense of
Yeah.
how, like, because I mean, dude, Joe Rogan gets continual. It's just, this is going on in politics right now. It's like you're a leftist libtard, or you're a Trumpster, or
Yeah,
whatever,
'cause
the Antifa.
those are the only ideas that get attention and traction.
Extreme
and
polar
the way,
opposites.
The way the algorithms are based, it has to be like unique and kind of hyper to get attention. And so that's what people post, and then some people, without even like realizing, like, oh, well, I want to get attention too, like they just kind of lean farther that direction. And so that's my biggest current dilemma. I try to write my book in that space, where
nice.
it's
That's
like
creative.
it's like critical of the church's handling of mental health issues, but also like just society in general, like hasn't quite figured it out. You know, like we send these guys off in the army, and then they come back, and like no one cares about their mental health. And it's kind of a similar thing. And I can't speak to that at all, but I feel like there is kind of an aspect of like, well, you should be tough enough to deal with that.
I wonder how much the modernization of warfare, because really, I mean, that wasn't talked about till World War II. You remember a famous actor that he had, like, we would have seen him on TV when we were kids, but he would have already been dead. His name was Audie Murphy. Famous actor. He was in a lot of Westerns. He was in a couple of World War II films. He was in a Western called The Texan. He was kind of like, it was like for him, when I was growing up watching Westerns, it was John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, of course. Mm-hmm. And then it was also him, and then like Randolph Scott.
What's his name?
Audie Murphy.
I don't know it. I probably would recognize him if I saw his face.
He legit served in World War II, and he came back and he had all of these mental health issues, and he was famous. So everybody took an interest and found out about him having these mental health issues. So that is one of the things that when you get to study in post-traumatic stress comes up is a case study of us becoming aware as a society about kind of what you're talking, like, hey, you just dealt with this horrible experience. Like, we don't really get that in the narrative post-Civil War. Mm-hmm. We get that in the narrative post-World War II, post-Vietnam, etc. Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can find a good photo of him. Like, I remember watching this dude on my grandpa's TV growing up. That's him, man. It's a black and white photo. Dressed much like, I feel like you would wear the same outfit.
That's a good looking haircut.
Yeah. Dude, I don't even know. Like, you got some volume going on today. Plus, you had a hat on.
I finally found a barber that I love.
Who are you seeing?
His name's Carlos in Clarksville.
Okay, because a guy who graduated high school had just started being a barber in Clarksville.
Oh, really?
Daniel Frias.
Okay. I don't know him.
Yeah. I don't know where he's cutting hair or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I had Bridget, who was like an angel to me, like sent from heaven, that cut my hair perfectly, knew exactly how I wanted to do. I would come home from college so she could cut my hair. When I lived like out in New England, every time I sat down in a chair, I would say, just so you know, there's a woman named Bridget who's a master at cutting my hair. You're probably not going to live up to her, but I just want you to know how high the standards are.
Yeah.
So
isn't it wild we still call it New England?
Yeah.
We don't call New York New Netherland. We don't call. I was thinking about this the other day. We do still call that area New England, but we don't call St. Augustine, Florida, New Spain. We don't call California New Spain. It's fascinating.
I wonder why that one's stuck.
I don't know. Just geographic and U.S. history. We organized the colonies into 3 groups. You probably remember that from when you were a kid. But Chesapeake, New England, and Mid-Atlantic.
Okay, I do remember that when you say them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also very small. Like it's like the size of one normal state, all of New England.
Yeah. Yeah. I was teaching, I just recently went on a big American Revolution rabbit hole, dude. Like really the first time. American Revolution, yeah.
I did a big Civil War stint last year.
That'll probably be what.
And I always feel like I need to go back.
What were some good sources you looked at? Did you watch any good documentaries?
I read a biography called Team of Rivals.
Okay.
Which is about Lincoln and his cabinet. Excellent, incredible documentary or biography. Audible used to have like classes, the great courses.
Yeah.
So I did a great course on the Civil War. So it's probably 35 lectures. I don't know, ballpark in that.
I like that. I love that. One of my textbooks has a 45 lecture series that covers the whole book.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And so then I did I did 2 other biographies. Maybe a General Sherman. I'd have to look on my Goodreads. But
the Civil War is something I'll actually say embarrassingly. I have not got through the Civil War in either of the U.S. history ones I've taught so far. Dude, colonial America will bog you down.
I bet. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it could be like its own class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I teach at a community college, so we don't have upper level courses.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Yeah. I started watching Community with my daughter.
Community? What's that?
The TV show.
I haven't seen it.
You need to watch it.
Yeah, Corey and I just got Sling TV somewhat recently. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've had
a channel package.
I had it on. It's on like Hulu.
Okay,
so it's been off the air for several years.
Log in.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
no problem. I've started an experiment with my HBO login to see how many people can have it.
Yeah. Oh man. I actually we can't. After Game of Thrones ended, we turned it off.
You're not watching Barry?
No, but I watched like the first episode, and my friend Chris Housnick, he's just on the podcast like a week ago. He's a political scientist. He loves it. He's like, dude, you gotta take another pass.
Yeah.
Well, then have you seen Vice Principals?
I saw like the first 2 seasons of it.
Yeah, the same. Yeah. I think a 3rd season just came out or is coming out.
Well, he also has a new show called The Righteous Gemstones, and it's
Danny
about
McBride?
like a mega church. Yeah, it's like about a mega church pastor. And I was so excited for it because I'm like, this is like that space I'm trying to write in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's a funny show. It doesn't really seem to understand that world though. Like I feel, like when people say like, hey, you can't write about cultures that you don't understand. And I was always like, hey, I can write about whoever I want. But then I start watching this show and I'm like, nah, they're not really getting it. They don't really understand, like they don't understand the dynamics of a church staff. They're not getting the dynamics of being.
Dude, when are you applying to be a writer on this show is my next question.
I would love to do that. I mean, I never worked at a church that big. or even really quite that conservative. But yeah, I do feel like conflicted because I really wanted something good in that space, and it is funny. Like, that guy's just funny.
He is. He's hilarious.
just,
Have you ever seen the Foot Fist Way?
Mm-mm.
They do. He spoofs a Taekwondo martial arts school owner.
I could see that would be
and
hilarious.
It's hilarious. I mean, they hit that, like what you're saying with like what we might have missed on church life. They hit the nail.
Got it.
In traditional martial arts on every possible head. Man, it was.
Well, I think it's odd because it's just, he's funny. They're all funny. And of course, you know, it's HBO, so the production value is very high, but it just doesn't quite understand the sincerity of these people that have wrong conclusions.
Yeah, like how much they hold to those convictions.
Yes. And it's like, I understand you don't believe what they believe, but if you did, don't you think you would act similarly? Like, if you did believe that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, like they do sincerely believe it. And so I just don't, it kind of makes them out to just, it just doesn't, it's like just like 3 degrees off where it is a funny show. I want to keep watching it, but it's not a commentary on what I hoped it would be a commentary on.
Maybe
that's okay.
Maybe they'll realize that and come back with a second season.
Or they'll just buy my book. We'll be fine. They'll make my book into a show.
Wouldn't it be wouldn't it be funny if like you were watching the new season and like they had totally taken like the whole plot line? Like there's like
that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is I start submitting this book around. You know, you have to like send it off to agents and stuff. Nothing, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And then seeing some version of it. Like
the plot line's been lifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would suck.
Because what would I ever do?
Okay, well, so the guy that I bought that bandana from right there, his name's Todd Snyder. Bandana. You ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Well, okay, so he's from Nashville area. He's like a singer. He just played with the Widespread Panic at the Ryman. Sat in with him for a couple songs.
Wow, y'all were there at the Ryman for that?
Yeah. It was
I saw y'all there. Ryman is the best.
That's the first time I've ever been.
It's the best.
And two, everybody was fine. We were in this group called Panic Stream, and everybody was like, no talking during the show. Everybody's being too rowdy.
Yes.
And then like between songs, everybody was like stomping their feet and just shaking the place. This is an
aside, so make a mental bookmark of where we are. But what is with people talking at concerts?
Some people have a serious problem with that.
It is baffling.
Like between songs or just
the whole time, just full conversation. Just full voice conversation through the whole set.
Yeah, that would bother me. I've never been around somebody like that.
I don't know. Like the last 3 concerts, I've experienced that. I'm like,
apparently the Chevelle show was like that the other night.
Why did we pay money? Like, you paid money to come in here. You're buying $12 drinks.
Maybe that's the reason.
Why are you? Yeah.
Panic broke the liquor sales for the Ryman.
Really?
On that 3-day run.
Yeah, that's funny. I could see that.
It's weird because like I don't get that. Like I don't drink very much at all. Like not to get drunk or like I don't buy alcohol. I just kind of like I haven't drank hardly at all in the last like 18 months. Like I was kind of like casually drinking there for a while. It's like have some beer in the fridge. But like honestly, the reason I stopped drinking is because I started noticing it was making me kind of aggressive. I don't know if that's real.
Because it makes you feel terrible.
That too. I felt like shit.
Yes,
I could drink 2 beers and I would feel like shit the next day.
You do. Yeah, I know. I heard a podcast recently about how like you have to defend yourself for not drinking.
Yeah, it's
very strange.
It is weird. I just kind of concluded like I didn't drink for a long time, and then from like 25 to 30, I drank a little bit, and now I'm just like, it makes me feel like shit. Like one time, I drank like 3 beers and a shot of Patron. I hadn't had lunch. I got sick and threw up. Like, what the hell?
Right. Yeah. So, so that was all a loop around what you were saying about.
We need a producer,
Yeah.
a young Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
to keep us on track. We were talking about Danny McBride.
You saw them at the.
We're talking people talking at concerts.
Mm-hmm.
Panic at the Ryman set the liquor sales record. I don't remember what got us. Todd Snyder.
Okay.
Garth Brooks stole one of his songs.
Yeah.
Have you heard this story?
I think you told me this story last. Yeah. Or some point you've told me this story.
Didn't Garth? Well, maybe Garth Brooks did it, but Garth Brooks got it from the guy that stole it from Todd Snyder,
Right.
which was "If Tomorrow Never."
That's a great
comes.
song.
Yeah, well, apparently he wrote it and it was coming out on an album, and he tells his story at a lot of his shows.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and then my publicist called me and he said, "Hey, you know that song, If Tomorrow Never Comes?" He's like, "Well, Garth Brooks, well, he wrote it too."
He wrote it too. Yeah.
It's like, and he goes and talks to him about it, and they're like, "Well, not entirely.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of this and that and lyrics and this and that you can take without it being entirely stolen."
Well, now they're suing people for like half a measure.
Okay, check this out. Which I want to. We can funnel
Like
into
6 notes.
Let's get funnel
They're
into
suing
this.
people.
I got flagged on the podcast channel, and they said not to do anything about it for putting we didn't listen to Fear Inoculum on the audience couldn't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But John Warren and I sat down and we just listened to the whole album. The way I had this set up is if it's playing on the TV, it comes into our headphones, but it doesn't record.
Got it.
So I don't ever have any copyright issions. I set up that way
Smart.
intentionally.
Yeah.
I don't do any screen capture, so no issue there. But so we had no graphics. All we had was, I guess algorithm picked it up, the title, which inoculum is a flagged word in Word. It's like, it doesn't recognize as a real word or whatever. But so I typed Fear Inoculum album review, and they're like, this has been flagged for copyrighted content.
So just by default, they assume that you play.
Yes, and they're like, we're telling you because you can dispute it if you want. You will never make money off this video. Is basically what they were saying. They're like, because this company that owns this, they're going to make the ads off your video. If anybody's watching your video, we're going to serve them these ads. So they're basically saying, hey, because your channel's not monetized yet, all I have to hit is subscribers. But they're like, even when it does become monetized, don't try and monetize this video because somebody else is getting the money.
They won't ever quit.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And what's wild is there's no infringement. There's no
that's the hard thing about our legal system is you would have to go through so much effort in the court system to prove there's no infringement.
I mean, they're going to have to watch the whole 2-hour thing.
Well, just getting all the court fine, then they would just
get
appeal
your day
it.
and
yeah. So it's like they know you're not going to bother to do that.
The email was they're like, unless you're absolutely positive that we have made an error, do not contact us. Like that was like the last.
They're not even gonna. But they're not even gonna read an email you send them.
So man, this brings us to an important thing I wanted to hit on. Like, it is very difficult in this time and place. Some things I see happening are this, are old articles being shared of such and such died, but it's like, dude, that happened 2017.
Yes.
Okay, so it's like people aren't checking dates on articles.
I know.
They aren't checking facts on articles.
They just want the hysteria.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know.
Well, so we had a conversation about the Imagine thing, right? So I was consuming that from the perspective of this band wrote a song about it. So then so whether Clear Channel or whoever backpedaled on it, we can talk about the whole story, but it's like, did the real question that got begged to me when we were chatting about it on Facebook is did the band consume fake news and then go write a song about it?
What is this now?
Okay, so remember when we were chatting online and maybe 6 months ago, and I was like, I shared this list and I was like, Clear Channel. They banned all these songs the Drive-By Truckers who.
Okay, I forgot all about that.
Yes. And you're like, dude, we should talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we're talking about all this digital stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But so either the band was influenced enough to go write a song by receiving misinformation, or Clear Channel's big enough that they were able to backpedal their story. I mean, they changed their whole name and brand to iHeartRadio and have Ryan Seacrest in Arkansas telling us about stuff that happens here. So could they control and manipulate a narrative?
I think there was an incident. The point I was trying to make is I think there was a list that came out in the aftermath just to be like, but I felt like the article written about the incident was incendiary.
Was it the Wikipedia article?
I don't think it was a Wikipedia article.
So there's a Wikipedia article, and it kind of just basic overview says, look, there was a list that came out. It wasn't like the point I think you were making is because like I was citing the lyrics of the song, which is called Once They Banned Imagine. Banned. So like you kind of cued in on that word. And the way the article reads, it's like, it's not an actual band. It's more like we're not
like, hey, we don't know everything that's happening for a couple days. Don't play these songs. And then we'll let you know when we're back to normal.
What do you think about that, though? Is that not censorship? Just in general censorship?
I mean, I do think it's wise to be sensitive to certain situations,
and especially in like a mass death.
That's a hard thing. You know, that's one of our biggest things as parents right now is just like, hey, read the moment. You know what I mean? You're a funny person. Sometimes the moment is not helped by being funny. You know what I mean? My daughter's very clever. She's very quick. She's kind of like pop culturally, we've kind of ruined her because she's like aware of all these pop culture references. Maybe
she only speaks to people in obscure cultural references.
Yeah, of like that 35-year-olds get. And so, but it's like, hey, sometimes we're running late for school. I can't find your little brother's lunchbox. He also doesn't have any clean clothes. It's just, don't try a joke right now. Like, it's a tense situation, you know, like that morning, get ready for school. There's like a 8-minute span there where like nothing can go wrong sometimes. And then 5 things go wrong. Let's not do any jokes in that time. So it's like, that is, I think, a mark of a mature person, of being able to like read the moment, being able to like be sensitive to certain things, you know. And I will joke about things with my friends privately that I may not make publicly because it's like we're just trying to laugh.
For sure.
Because we're 100 miles away from a situation.
Well, like, so for example.
But to someone in the situation, that might be too fresh for them to find humor in that.
But I don't even really want to say this because we're so close to 9/11, because that was all come out as 9/11. But it's like, it's almost like, it's almost like this. Oh man, my grandma died on this day. I just realized that. Wow, 2001. Yeah, that would be my dad's mom passed away. Would it be 7? What is it? How many years has it been since 9/11?
18.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that right?
I think so. 01 to 2019. But okay, so like this, people who want to grapple with the topic of 9/11 was an inside job. Let's talk about Tower 7. But here's the thing. Here's the issue with that. Whether it was or not, it does not change the people that died that day. Yes. That's what you cannot change. Right. And when you talk about it like that, it's just like the Sandy Hook stuff. It's you're discrediting, like, those people really died. Whether or not the planes had people on them, or if they were drones, or whatever you want to go down. There's a whole bunch of people that lost their families or lost their lives in the towers collapsing.
Yeah. Whoever the terrorists were, a lot of people died. And people miss that. And I think it's all rubbish. But like I said,
you think 9/11's rubbish?
No.
Okay.
No.
Tower 7?
No. Like I said, They're grown adults. They can believe whatever they want to believe. But I do think it's irresponsible to be insensitive about something.
Okay, so would you say the United States is a Christian nation?
I would not say that.
Most of the songs on that list were banned in a direct relation to Christianity. That was my big issue. Every AC/DC song that had the word hell in it. Anything that was subversive to government in any shape, form, and fashion. All Rage Against the Machine. Like, the dude went to Harvard. We can't listen to what he has to say.
Right.
He's an Ivy League educated man.
Yeah.
I'm joking around about a lot. But that was my thing, is like, I thought there was too close of a connection to religious overtones of, it's almost like it was getting turned into that because we had a conservative president at the time, and he was and we did go to war with Iraq very shortly thereafter.
Yeah. I just thought, I don't think Clear Channel, was it Clear Channel or
it was, they were called Clear Channel at the time. They became iHeartMedia or iHeartRadio.
I don't think Clear Channel did anything based off any conviction.
Do you think it was sent down by the government? That's the next question.
No, I don't think.
Okay. Are you familiar with the dozen times we have done that since World War II?
No.
Okay. I would urge you to look into, like, people always want to get, you're false flags. Like, there have been 7 false flags confirmed since World War II.
False what?
False flags. Like, people want to say Sandy Hook is a false flag. I don't say it's a false flag, right? But there have been false flag events, like the Bay of Pigs invasion. That's a false flag. Okay. That's the CIA getting involved and trying to topple a government, and it blew up in our face.
Right.
But we've made it illegal during
except that all came out like immediately.
Which part? Oh, the list?
No, about it all blowing up, right?
Which
the Bay of Pigs?
No. Gulf of Tonkin resolution, that didn't come out till years later, right? So, like, not to get into false flag, but what I'm saying is, like, we made it illegal to talk bad about your shirt if you're in the military since World War II. You know, like,
this shirt specifically, or military?
That's a great
shirt?
Looking shirt. It's military uniform.
Okay,
polka dots, man. Like, yeah. You have a great fashion sense. Okay, like, the shoes really bring it together. But I'm working. Like, I've had graduate course, first and second Red Scare. So, like, I have seen the history of our nation's hysteria in the post World War II era. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm operating on when it comes to my narrative of, you ever heard of Dalton Trumbo? Mm-mm. Well, you know, he was a communist, so he never gets to work again. But he wasn't a communist. They just said he was. Right. You know, but he's like, they made a movie about Bryan Cranston was in it. And I'm not going to go, I couldn't even tell you all the facts of Dalton Trumbo right now, but in the second Red Scare, like, when we were paranoid about Korea, Vietnam, China, and the Soviet Union being communist, that made it over to here with McCarthyism and all that. And that's when it became illegal to say and do all these things. And if you were ever at a meeting where they were talking about communism, and they could take you to court and say that, and you're done. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm worried about those types of things happening again.
So I believe all the things you're saying. I'm just going to I'm verified every one of them. Well, personally.
And I can't. I'm going to be skinny on facts because I don't have notes in front of me or anything like that.
Just believing everything you say. What I'm saying is, those things exist, and then articles like this one come along and manipulate that, or they overextend that, or I can't quite think of the right metaphor to use, but they take advantage of the oversensitivity to that because of these past events. You know what I'm saying? And so instead of people looking at the actual facts of what happened, they write a attention-grabbing headline. They bring out certain facts of this, or they emphasize
scant sources, likely.
They emphasize certain facts about this particular situation and pile it on as evidence for some other like real stuff that actually happened. And like it's like an internal email, right, for like a young media company that doesn't probably have a lot of margin for error. They feel they just want to be extra, play it safe for a couple days, and then like that becomes evidence of something else that might actually be a problem, but it just muddies the water.
Yeah, I mean, really,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because honestly, whether or not I can't tell you. Like, I wasn't aware of the list coming out, or anything when it happened. It's only after the fact. So you could almost say, like, what you might be saying is, in this hysterical time, because it's hysterical right now, that article might have been going around and it's been repurposed as a larger narrative by either this band or whatever, because it's an after the fact type thing. It's not like nobody even really jumped on it then, probably because of the sensitivities to the tragedy of 9/11 and all that. But it's here we're experiencing, because that album that band wrote, like, no qualms about it, was a Donald Trump protest album. And a lot of their fans didn't like it. I just started listening to this band like the last 3 or 4 years. Widespread Panic bought them their first tour bus. The frontman's dad, you ever see that documentary Muscle Shoals?
No.
About the Swampers and the Allman Brother played in there. Aretha, was it Aretha Franklin? Anyway, Muscle Shoals Sound. It's a studio.
Okay.
And that's where those guys come out of. Like, that dude's dad's a session bassist. Panic recorded albums there. They recorded albums there. But it was 2017, wrote this protest album. That's when they wrote this song. Once they banned Imagine, it became the war from when we were kids. That was the turn on the phrase. And like, so what I interpreted that as is exactly what I was like saying to you. It's like the war when we were kids were when Patterson Hood was a kid is the second Red Scare and Vietnam and Contras and stuff like that. But I like Ronald Reagan. Like, I've only become aware that I used to like that dude as president until I found out tons of stuff about him. Now I think he's not a good president.
Yeah, and it's hard because I think it's like, it's complicated.
And when it takes time to sort out.
Like, everything is nuanced and complicated, but it's hard to write a Facebook post that gives attention to all sides of the issue. Like, Facebook posts, you just want the conclusions. Like a tweet is like just the conclusions. And so it's hard to factor in all the gray area, and if you do try to do that, no one cares. No one shares it, no one likes it, no one takes the time to read it.
So what should we do? Like what you're saying, like, because I will say, like, very real stuff with me, like, back on something you said earlier, like, I feel this, like, really weird, overwhelming inside me drive to create shit.
Yeah.
Like, and that need gets satiated in some weird way, and I don't even know why, because I felt self-conscious about it in the past. But, like, if I'm putting it on YouTube, it's almost, it's like, okay, I've created it, and I let go with it, and it's there on the shelf, and it's good, and I might revisit it and redo it or something, but it's almost like the need gets satiated when I do that.
Yeah.
But it's weird, like, I feel a need to do. It's almost like, I tell people it's like a disease for me. Like, I have to do it.
I understand that, and I understand the need to I definitely understand the need to create content. You know, that's why I explain my writing addiction to my wife.
Well, and you described it as art earlier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it just art for you?
Yeah, definitely. But I do feel compelled not just to create it, but to create something that people will understand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just make it and then throw it out into the ocean and feel good that I made it. Like, I want to know that people connect with it and that people understand what I'm trying to say. And I even understand, you know, I keep talking about online arguments or online extremism, but I often feel compelled to jump in like I did on that post and say, hey, actually, that's not quite right.
Yeah,
Even though,
me
like,
too. I feel the same way. I wonder what makes us feel
and
that
like
way.
I don't even know like why. I don't know what good comes from that very often.
Yeah.
You know? And I've been trying to, in the last few months, trying to figure out ways to interject that aren't so aggressive, and find ways to interject that aren't so like divisive. And whenever I try to do it that way, whenever I try to participate in a conversation in a more diplomatic way, it's like nothing. It's like that's when I feel like it just goes off into the universe and disappears, because it's like no one then it's like the reverse happens, where instead of the people that I agree hearing what we believe and rah, yeah, get them, then the people that I don't agree with, because the words I've used are so diplomatic, they're able to hear what they believe. And it doesn't, like, they're able to kind of like interpret that as, yeah, I'm right. Or it's like, yeah, he's saying, you know what I mean? So.
Well, just like we were talking about earlier with the tonality of things, that probably happens more when you're reading it than when you're hearing it.
Yes. And in person and face to face, you have the ability to, like, for immediate clarification. And you can kind of tell, oh, they didn't hear me right. Let me say, you know, based on their immediate response, you can then clarify what you meant. And online, it's just kind of like you're both throwing water balloons at a different wall. And it's like, well, it's a red balloon. No, it's a blue balloon. It's like, well, I can just keep throwing red paint on the wall indefinitely until you get tired.
Were you going with red and blue for Democrat and Republican?
No, I should have done different colors.
You should have gone with, was it the elephant and the donkey? What are their mascots? Why are those their mascots? I should know.
There is a history for that. I
just found out which I knew this. I just remembered it, or came up with, like, the join or die poster when we came up with that.
Oh, I don't know
with
that.
the snake. It was actually in the French and Indian War.
Join or die.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. That's what the internet feels like. It's like join. It's like you either join us or you don't exist.
Are you a Tool fan? Maynard is dealing with a lot of these topics in the last A Perfect Circle album and in this Tool album.
I guess I need to listen to it. The musical style doesn't speak to me.
Yeah, we've been say they just got on digital, so we've been playing them in the gym like nonstop.
Yeah,
and I have just created this playlist with it's like Tool, Rage Against the Machine, like stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
kind of same genre, but like some Tool will be coming on. I'll look over at the guys. I'm like, this is way too aggressive and masculine, guys. Good thing the singer's wearing a bra and a blonde wig right now.
Yeah. I guess I need to just read the lyrics. You know,
that's what got me into him. Do you know who Jeremy Barlow is?
No.
He was just on the podcast a couple of days ago. Grew up together, and I was talking to him. I was like, dude, when I was like just getting into high school, like I even had the 10,000 Days album, but I never got Tool, like the depth of it. So I was like, even till like probably the last 5 years.
A lot of stuff is that way when you're a kid.
You re-listen to it as an adult. There's no way I could have got that in high school.
Or movies, when you rewatch movies.
Yeah. But when I just started taking some philosophy, I saw Jeremy post these Tool lyrics up on Facebook, and I was just like, I read them, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is he talking about? I mean, and you read the lyrics, like everybody's heard 46 and 2. But if you read the lyrics and read into the inspiration of the song, you're like, oh man, like it's like an intro to psychology class.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be guided through Tool, but
it's I would say right now, if I was just going to get into Tool, I would not get into Tool just because it's so cool to be into Tool right now. You know what I'm saying? Like they have never. I can't ever remember in my life them having so much. They're number one, like the top 10 on all of the charts.
Yeah, it's definitely like mainstream. Seems like it's like Dungeons and Dragons.
T-Swift out.
I started playing Dungeons and Dragons
recently.
Yeah.
Do you play
about a year
with a group up here, Clarksville?
Yeah, in Clarksville. Yeah, our dungeon master's from Ozark.
Cool.
But it's so fun.
I've played a few games myself.
So
Chris
fun.
Hausnick, he's one of my purple belts, political scientist guy I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Huge into D&D.
Very
huge.
nice.
I got a few students that are.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Where do you play at?
Usually at my house.
Okay, cool.
We have a great big kitchen table, about this size, a little bigger. And I'm just kind of selfish that way. I just like making my own nachos in my own oven.
Yeah. So you said you have a dungeon master. You're not the dungeon master?
No. I'm a level 5 dragonborn wizard named LeBronze.
I was a gnomish bard.
Okay.
In my last game, I rolled up, so it was a good time.
Very nice.
It's been a minute. I played,
but it's like mainstream now. It's like so cool.
Yeah. It's not like, well, I wonder how much of that has to do with like Stranger Things.
I think that was a big boost for it.
Yeah.
But I think it was on the upswing before that, and that really propelled it.
I didn't get exposed to it till after high school.
I had a cousin when I was a kid that would, like, him and he's probably 10 years older than me, and they would play it. And I thought it was neat. I didn't understand what they were doing.
Yeah, that was the same thing with me.
I never really had the aversion to it because of that, because I had seen it. I just had never had a chance to play.
Do you know Scott Sexton?
Yeah.
What happened to that guy? I hadn't seen that dude forever.
He teaches. He teaches.
He's
music.
Still teaching band music, choir,
like elementary school music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've played a little bit with Scott too.
Okay.
A couple of times.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll have to message him.
Yeah, I was just, it got me thinking about him, because I mean he is super into, or at least he was. He got married around the same time that we were hanging out and playing. This had been more than 10 years ago. Well, probably more like 13, 14. Isn't it weird to talk in like time increments longer than 10 years?
Yes. Yeah. I definitely, I keep talking about my daughter moving into this next phase of her life where she's not really a little kid anymore. And really, like, I'm the one moving into a new...
You're preparing to not be the dad that makes her not have a partner? Is that what you're...
No. I'm just saying, like, I'm moving into a new phase of, like, not like a young adult, or not like a... Like, I get called sir so much now, all the time.
I get called Mr. Wilson.
Well, I was at my younger kid, 5-year-old, was at a birthday party for him, and all the kids were calling me Mr. Wilson, and I was just like, hey, Josh is fine.
I go like 3 steps further.
Even though I make my kids say that to other people.
I'm like, call me bro. Like, what's funny is like they'll call like I have to tell them on the first day, like school wants them to call me Mr. Wilson. It's in the syllabus. But I'm like, I had the first day, I was kind of like, oh, that's weird, to get called Mr. Wilson. I made a Dennis the Menace joke, like Walter Matthau.
Yeah.
They didn't get it.
Great. No, they've never heard of them.
Made a Mrs. Doubtfire joke one time.
Nope.
Didn't get it. And then I started making jokes about House of Pain and those goats eating Sally Field's begonias, and they really didn't get those jokes.
It's wild how fast, like, I just feel like I'm so out of touch with everything. Like I Love Lucy.
Corey and I rewatched a bunch of those episodes recently.
It's a great show. But when I was a kid, I watched that on like TV Land.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like so old. It was like so ancient. But like Keenan and Kel is that old now.
Orange soda.
Kel loves orange. Yeah, exactly. Like that's a reference I would expect everyone in the room to understand. Well, but if I'm the oldest person in the room, most people younger, like college age kids, do not understand that reference. And
or the
yeah,
that Ricky Ricardo laugh.
And if you showed them a YouTube of it, if you showed them a video of it, they would perceive that as being as old as I perceive I Love Lucy?
I don't remember the stat, but somebody was breaking down to me like the distance of time between like the height of the Old Kingdom in Egypt to Cleopatra being longer than Cleopatra to now.
What?
Okay, so you know when Cleopatra lived in Egypt,
Okay.
like right as the Roman Empire is coming to rise.
Okay.
Like, so the beginning of the Old Kingdom in Egypt,
Okay.
that is like 3500 BC. From there to Cleopatra is a longer amount of time than it is from Cleopatra to right now.
Really?
Yes.
Now, there's some theories about the Egypt.
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
I don't know.
I love Egypt. What
I don't know. I just know there's some people think that they like knew how to cure cancer. And
they had over 500 drugs at the Memphis School of Medicine.
All these things that was all lost.
Yeah, when the library at Alexandria burned.
Yeah.
The secret for mummification probably lost. We know Herodotus, the Greek historian, told us a fair amount about some of the processes, but we don't know. There's so much. Like how'd they build the pyramids? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What were they used for? You think they were tombs? They were zero conclusive evidence to prove that they were tombs. All the pharaohs were buried in the Valley of the Kings. There are no hieroglyphics in the tombs or in the pyramids. There are hieroglyphics in tombs.
Yeah. So I knew that obviously you know more about it than I do. I just knew that was like a thing.
Yeah. Egypt blows my mind. The one thing that you brought up, there's like 13 of those things in my mind where you're just like, Joe Rogan's just talking about in his podcast. He's like, how do they do their engineering?
Mm-hmm.
He just went on a big rant just about engineering. And I was just like, oh, dude, there's 13 theories that I know about of what the pyramids could have been used for.
What are some of them?
Ancient power plant.
Okay.
Temples, or not temples per se, but some sort of a symbolic passage of life and death. There's one theory out there that sounds interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some evidence that points to one of them may have been like shiny, like reflective, like the limestone was polished.
Okay.
One of them may have been red, and one of them may have been black to symbolize birth, death, and life.
Yeah. So like, if 500 years from now, when whatever happens, society as we know it dissolves, you're coming through this continent, you come to the St. Louis Arch. What would you think that was if you didn't know what it was? Like how many things could you make up? You know what I mean? And it's it's not anything really. It's like the gateway to the West, but it doesn't have a function.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like
so it's like
the Sphinx, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what was this used for? Why is it here? Does it have anything to do with the pyramids behind it?
Mm-hmm.
And then the constellations in it. But there's big disagreements on when all that stuff, like imagine this, like, okay, we think they built the arch at 300 AD, but it was really built in like
Right. So how old is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the pyramids,
they could narrow it down to like 500 years.
The geologists don't agree with the Egyptological community on the dating of any of the rocks.
Huh.
That's what another thing blew my mind. Most geologists date the Sphinx at being older than 10,000 years old.
So why? That baffles me.
Because we don't have anything. We don't have a record beyond the Egyptian, beyond the Egyptian Old Kingdom.
Yeah.
There's no historical record that we definitively can say we know the King's List from there. The speculation is that the pharaohs that have been attributed to building the 3 biggest pyramids at Giza actually just did repairs to them.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying I come down on that.
Yeah.
The pyramid, it's so much speculation. We don't know.
Right.
I wish we did.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, but then we could never have these conversations.
That is true. See, that's like my theory with college football. The people that run college football know that it's a disaster.
Do you watch all the college football?
No.
I gave up several years ago.
Yeah. The system makes no sense, right? You have like the 100th best team in the country playing the 10th best team in the country.
Yeah, there's no like
Right.
Are you saying there should be like some every team seeding from year to year? Or?
Yeah, so like there's a lot of ways you could fix it. Like the Patriots beat the Dolphins on Sunday like 60 points. That's the worst team in the NFL, but it's only the 30th team. Okay? So in college football, you have like Alabama playing like the 90th team. Mm-hmm. Like think of how big that gap is. And then those two teams are supposedly in the same
conference.
Not conference, but like class.
Yeah.
Like those are both Division I football teams. That makes no sense. The people that run college football know that it makes no sense. They know that it's not competitive. They know that it's not rational. But all the space it makes people talk about it. It forces people to talk about it. It forces people to say, because there's no like defined winner, you know, because all the teams that play each other at the end of the year don't play each other during the season, and then they just kind of like choose who gets to play each other at the end. That creates so much conversation. If it was like definite, everyone would be like, oh well, yep, they won their conference, so they get to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But since it's all speculation, it just creates interest because it's flawed.
There's a lot of stuff like that, for sure. Yeah, man.
Because, like we said, hysteria creates attention.
Well, like the rules set in jiu-jitsu or athletic commissions in different states for the MMA, right. They don't agree.
Right. And I don't really keep up with MMA, obviously, like you do. I think it's interesting.
For the reasons you're talking about in my sports, mm-hmm. I've stopped keeping up with it. You know?
The only time I hear about it is when something crazy happens. When there's some kind of scandal, when there's some kind of disqualification or failed drug tests or whatever.
Some guys move into the Raiders, but he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Yes. So like I'm trying to make up things that I think happen in MMA, but might be confusing with boxing in general. Anyway, like that creates attention. You know what I mean?
It does.
Like I don't know enough about it to watch a fight and understand like the nuance of who's fighting better or whatever. But whenever someone's like, "Oh, can you believe this guy had some
such and such move?"
Yeah. Or well, even that, I'm like, okay, I still don't understand that. But if it's like, well, this guy was cutting weight illegally.
Oh yeah.
You know, or whatever.
Performance enhancing drugs, those such things. Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, that's what? Oh, I got
this is a problem in the sport?
What? Yeah. And so like that's just the way the internet works. That's the only information that spreads is that
stuff to argue about.
Yes. Yeah. And
do you think that a lot of this is precedent? Like it got going that way?
What do you mean?
Maybe the internet just became an outlet for angst.
Yeah, I think it existed. The problem with the internet is it's like hyperdrive. Because like there was competing newspapers in the Civil War that were complete party line, complete just mouthpieces for their leaders, whatever. But the fastest you could put out a newspaper was twice a day. Maybe most of the time once a day. You know what I mean? The problem with the internet is you can put out 1,000 articles an hour. You can spread it out. You know what I mean? And so it's like taking all of those natural human things, because it does make sense for humans to be in tribes. It does make sense to like want to be around people that see the world the way you see the world. But the internet has taken all that and just like infused it with steroids and microwave and instant. Like,
would you think this like would you?
It's like limitless.
Compare this to like maybe territorialism. You know, like, okay, so like the difference between humans and animals is like human beings will sail across from Japan to China and rape 37,000 people. Animals, they don't plan.
Mostly just keep to themselves.
Yeah, but if you get in their area around their babies, they might kill you. You know, but it's not like we're going to plan to go over there and rape these people so we can get more Japanese, or, you know, genetics over there, or whatever. Like animals, but territorialism is the definitive thing where we look at like human beings commit atrocities, animals are territorial. Human beings are also territorial, but they commit atrocities, and animals don't commit atrocities.
Yeah, I do think it is natural for humans to like clump up into bunches.
That's what kind of got me thinking about it, because you've mentioned like the tribe mentality of like or groups, like different identity groups, and it's got me thinking about that.
Yeah. And I just think we haven't learned yet how to do it when we have unlimited access to every other person on the planet.
How much stuff have you learned off of YouTube this year?
Indefinitely. It's just like great. So much stuff off YouTube.
I mean, I know people learn how to blacksmith. Like, I started learning guitar scales. Yep. Like, I've never been good at playing lead guitar.
People ask me how to... I was like, hey, can you teach me drums? I'm like, yeah, get on YouTube.
There's been a 72-year-old guy coming to my gym. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Clarksville. Yeah. He's a martial arts master, like all capital letters. And he'll be teaching me something. He's Mr. Miyagi's me on the daily. He comes to my class, wears a white belt. And he's just like, oh, you just go look this up on YouTube, Brian. 72-year-old dude telling me, this little old Asian man. Yeah. And he's like, it's all on YouTube. Here, let me send you the link. And I'm just like,
yeah. And why? I don't even know why. Some of these things, I don't know why these people bothered to put it online, but they
maybe did. For the reason we were talking about earlier. They just
have a need to create and share. Yeah. I believe that 100%. And I think it's like kind of like the Wild West. It's like a new frontier kind of, and like people our age and older who grew up their whole lives talking to people a certain way, expecting certain things, people in a certain way, reacting to things, reacting to crisis in a certain way, haven't really figured out how to do it in this new arena, you know, because I think like I'm confused by Instagram and Instagram stories, but it's like natural to my daughter.
Isn't that weird? Like like most college students are not on Facebook.
Right.
Like that's actually like we kill it on Facebook so hard, but it's like that's because the parents of the kids like your age are on Facebook. And so I'm just like, what about when these teenagers get to having kids and they're on Instagram still and I'm not in touch with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Facebook will be like the local news. It's like, well, Grandpa Josh, he's got to watch his Facebook every day. Can't miss the local news.
It'd be like MySpace.
Watches Wheel of Fortune and then checks his Facebook.
Oh man, like my grandparents had the old like huge TV, like the big boxy one, like and it would have the static
on top.
The static going across it, and they'd just pick up like CBS and Hartman, Arkansas, and watching Wheel of Fortune and the college football game.
Yep. Yeah, and so like that was as much content as they could consume. And now we have ability.
That's overload.
That it's like not because they didn't want more or wouldn't watch more if they had it. That's literally all they had. So they had like a natural governor on the amount of content they could consume. But now it's like unlimited. I can watch 4 screens at once. All day long.
Dude, I got 2 monitors, about to hook up a third one in my office.
Yeah.
And I'm really sad that I haven't got that third one.
Because it is great. Like there's a huge benefit to it. And I just think like as young people that have never known anything different, as they start to get older and disperse into the natural world on their own, it'll make more sense to them why Russia hacking the election is a big deal. Because they actually know what that means. Like my grandma she has no concept of what that means. Russia hacked the election. How? Did they go to every voting booth? Did they, you know what I mean? Like, did they go to every city council meeting and spread wrong information? No. How could anyone ever do that? No, they didn't have to do that. Like, she doesn't understand what that means. But like a 15-year-old
knows about Twitter troll farms.
Who's put somebody on blast on Twitter for standing in front of their locker all day. Like, they understand how do you make a campaign? How do you spread bad information against someone online? They know what that means. So when someone says, yeah, we know that, you really like your candidate, but there's these people from Russia that are spreading bad information about them. They'll say, whoa, we can't allow that. I understand what that means, and we have to shut that down. Because I have access to all of the world's history, and I understand how amazing democracy is, and I don't want to waste it. So we need to shut that down. But like, now the people that are in the room that should be concerned about it, they're like, that sounds bad.
Do you think democracy is still working like tops for us?
Working what?
Tops. Like,
I don't think it's function. I think it's still running. I think it's back down in first gear. Yeah,
I kind of joke around like
it's sputtering, but I think it's still running. I do think it will recover.
I hope so. We based both of our systems of government off of 2 previously failed systems of government.
Yeah,
and wanted it to be different. And I like the idea of blending ideas, but like, what if that only gets us the same amount of time as it got the Greeks and the Romans together?
Yeah, and I think understanding that and understand that it does have to be continuously tweaked and updated and perfected to suit things that, Thomas Jefferson would never even imagine.
I was talking about that. Are you familiar with the necessary and proper clause?
No.
It's
in the Constitution.
The elastic clause is what they call it a lot of times. Basically, like, someday somebody's going to make the internet, so this clause.
Okay.
But then that's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
The national bank was a big contentious point.
And I agree, or I understand that you with the idea that you don't want to put everything in the Constitution. You don't want to change the Constitution every 6 months to, like, that's what laws are for.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Do you
so it is a thing to balance. It's like we've been saying. It's nuanced. It's complicated.
It is like what you were saying earlier with you got a really wide lane with some rails way over here on the periphery.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
Yeah,
but I think some people want to bring all the parameters in and say only this. This is how I function as an American. And so this is the only thing that I want anyone else to function as an American.
Yeah, we as Americans don't all have the same shared experience.
Right.
I've gotten really into trying to understand more about sectionalism. Like, basically that, like, you could say more so that there are sections of the United States where there is a more shared experience amongst the highest number of people.
Yeah, like
that's
regions.
Interesting. Yes.
And for, like, on most continents, except for maybe Russia, each of those regions would just be its own country. Like, it would be like France and Spain and Italy trying to be one country. And that is an amazing thing, that, like, this whole huge thing across the center of the continent is one country, but it does create complications because, if you grew up in New England, you have a different experience of the world than if you grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
And then the problem is the only information you don't get the day-to-day life of someone in California because that's boring. It's not interesting. You only get the hot spots. You only get the hysteria. You only get the murder and crime. You know what I mean? You only get the worst and the very best. So you know about the Dodgers, and you know about Magic Johnson, and you think the border crisis is out of control and unmanageable and causing all sorts of problems.
Did you listen to the podcast we did on the border crisis?
No, but I'd love to.
Okay, so
podcast it out, man.
Well, you might.
I should say that on a podcast.
You have switched from listening to providing the actual content.
Yeah. Honestly, writing that book, it took over like all my spare time for content consumption.
When you come out with the book, you just come back on.
Yeah, man.
Talk about the
I
book.
would love to do that.
I'm trying to get a signed copy and stuff.
I would love to have a signed copy to give you.
Yeah.
It's a long way down the road.
Well, yeah, they give us. It's been like a year since we did a podcast anyway. So, what were you saying right before that? I had something I was going to say about. Billy Reeder. Billy Reeder.
Okay.
He's a journalism professor.
Okay.
We did a podcast, and great guy, background in philosophy, like built his own cabin. But he's like teaches graduate program journalism students. But he was on sabbatical.
Okay.
For a whole semester, went down to the border, has a sailboat down in South Texas, and was deeply ingrained in what's going on down there, and like told a bunch of case studies. Like I was just like, oh yeah, we've been doing regime change wars down in South America, and now these people are fleeing our democracy, which has failed, and now they're trying to come to the United States because we didn't effectively do that. Yes, that is going on. All of the stories he told me are people coming from Africa or Asia, because it's easier for them to get out of those countries, off those continents, into South America, and then they can manipulate the system through work and travel visas through Mexico to walk to the border.
Yeah.
And we picked up on that and changed the asylum laws and some other things. And basically what he was saying is it created a dam. He's like, what we did, and now there's like a backlog of 600,000 cases or something. Yeah. Imagine the amount of judges you would need.
Right.
I hope that's my lawnmower.
I was going to say somebody's mowing your yard.
Good, man. It needed mowed. I was kind of embarrassed when you were coming over. I was like, I need a student mow my yard.
My yard has also fallen by the ways. I used to be so proud of my yard.
Bro, you don't have the PVC pipe with the...
I don't, man. I just I got to write this book. I don't have time to keep my yard looking nice.
Dude, when you explained that to me, I was like, man, that's extra attention to detail. I will say, like, when we move to the gym, I'm going to buy a truck. I'm going to buy my own zero-turn mower.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to start managing both of the...
Excellent.
Man, with the zero-turn, a lot at the new gym's big, but... Yeah. I think I'd be able to knock them both out.
It's amazing how much faster it goes.
Yeah.
Well,
dude, let's wrap this up, man.
Yeah,
I don't know what else you got going on today. I got to go to the gym here in the next little bit, so
absolutely.
Give us.
This is fun for me. I hope you got some content you can use.
For sure, man. We did about an hour and a well, no, 2 hours.
Oh man,
that flew by.
Wow,
I thought it was an hour and a half. I was
double episode.
Yeah, I've done a couple of 3 hours. So let's just do another 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time, sharing your ideas, and your,
I appreciate it.
Polka dot shirt with the audience, and your haircut.
It's a lot of volume.
Dude, I mean, my grandpa, he had a similar haircut, and I'm like, how does he do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
man.
Signing off.
I'll see you on the internet.
Yes, sir.
That was great, dude.
Yeah, dude, it was.
Felt
Thanks,
good.
Man.
Yeah. Emerson